Would you say an ISSO, an Information System Security Officer, an Information System Security Manager is the government equivalent of a private sector cybersecurity consultant in terms of task? This is a good question. I actually have experience with both of these things. I'm currently a cybersecurity consultant. I can really speak on this. Here's the question. They're asking if the government Information System Security Officer and a government Information System Security Manager is the equivalent of a cybersecurity consultant. And to that, I would say it really depends on the organization, because the private sector is much more fluid with how they define roles. They're much more fluid. I've been in a cybersecurity consultant where I specifically did Information System Security Officer work. I was a consultant, but they were having me do all the tasks of an Information System Security Officer, and I worked for a government organization as a contractor. And then when I would do my system security plan, or if I would update EMAS, or they had some equivalent to EMAS, it was like Archer or something like that, I would update that. I would put in the implementation statements. I would have to interview people if I was doing an assessment. Everything that you would normally do as an ISSO, I was doing it. And as a matter of fact, they would refer to me as an ISSO from time to time. I was a contractor who was working for a government agency, and my title within the company was a cybersecurity consultant. But when I was on the job, they referred to me as an Information System Security Officer. I say this to say there's a very fluid way that the private sector determines the roles that go with cybersecurity consultant. It's not mapped out as clearly as the government is. The government's very clear with the title. If you're an Information System Security Officer, you do these tasks. If you're a cybersecurity consultant, you do these tasks. If you're an ISSE, you do these tasks. This is what you do. Anything else is an extra hat. But in the private sector, it's so fluid. Right now, I'm in a job where I'm called something equivalent of a cybersecurity consultant. I'm a cybersecurity risk consultant. I'm not an ISSO. If the equivalent of what I'm doing is more like, I'm doing more like an auditor or an assessor type. Well, there's a difference between what I do and what an assessor will do. Look at the scan data and stuff, and I'll do a report saying, look, here are your main areas of concern. Here's where you need to fix these things right here, and here's your risk level, right? You should focus on these things right here. Whereas an auditor or an assessor that's in the government sector or in the private sector, traditional auditor, they're going to come in and say, you got all these things wrong, you guys need to fix it, or you got not going to get this certification, right? This government certification. I'll work with them to get it fixed, whereas an auditor is not working with them to get it fixed. They're like, fix this stuff, and then they pop smoke and then they leave, you know? So like, it really depends on the private sector. You really got to read the job description, because a cybersecurity consultant can be a guy who does all the ISSO tasks. They can also do some of the ISSO tasks, and they can do none of the ISSO tasks. It just depends on the job description. I hope that answers your question.